Do you normally wear a lapel?
I would prefer that because I
can
talk
get it
with
for
my
you.
hands.
Yep.
I'll get out of the way.
You're good. I'll get it for you.
Okay.
Hello, everybody. It's me, George Burns.
Should be good.
Then I'll do the thank you at the end.
Perfect.
Fine.
Sounds good. Good. All right. Thank you for coming out in the cold and the wet and for joining us for the third talk in a series on the Catholic intellectual tradition. Our speaker today, and every time we meet, will be Sister Dianne Bergant, a member of the Congregation of the Sisters of St. Agnes. We are honored to have her living right down the street from us, even though her experience in life has taken her all over the world. She has an extensive experience in her field of expertise, which is biblical scholarship, and she has served on many different publications and committees, as well as the Catholic and Jewish Dialogue in Chicago. She has taught many people through the Catholic Theological Union, including Pope Leo XIV, and we have the honor of hearing from her tonight on the topic of commitment to universal truth, Anthropocentric versus Cosmocentric. So thank you for coming and being with us again today.
Thank you. I got to make sure you hear. Is the microphone good? Okay. What I'd like to do this afternoon, this afternoon, first of all, I want to read what this particular value is, and then I want to connect it to the other two talks that I gave, and then again add that particularly link to the whole context or to the structure of the Catholic intellectual tradition. It's Catholic not because we created it. It's Catholic because we sponsor it, because we ascribe to it, but it's not exclusively Roman Catholic. But I want to read what it says in this from Marian College. Catholicism honors the processes of intellectual inquiry. That's very important to understand because there are a lot of people that think because of what some of our practices are, and also by our, I mean now Roman Catholic, but not exclusively Roman Catholic, but because some of our practices and also the language within which our religious tradition is articulated, some people think that Roman Catholicism, if you're really Catholic, you're anti-intellectual. So the Catholic intellectual tradition states very clearly, Catholicism honors the processes of intellectual inquiry. Ask questions. Grasp glimpses of the truth. That's all we can get is glimpses, and hope to God it's part of the truth. In the pursuit of integrating understanding, the ultimate end of intellectual activity in the Catholic tradition goes beyond the learning of facts. It's very important to find deeper principles and meanings, including truths about the nature and purpose of human life. I talked about that in the first and then a little bit in the second, but mostly in the first when I talked about image of God. How do we understand ourselves as human beings? I'm going to talk about that again this afternoon. How do you, how do I, how do we understand ourselves as human beings? How do we understand ourselves? First of all, as human beings, then as gendered human beings. And most people don't think about this, but that determines how we interact with each other. As a person, the way you understand yourself in terms of your understanding of your gender, And this is an age when that is so complicated. It was so much easier when you knew there were only two genders, male and female. We've got all kinds of gender understanding, using the same language. That's all anthropology. Anthropos comes from the Greek word, one of the Greek words that means human, not man, human. It's broader than that. Address is that, but this is human. So we're talking about anthropology, which is the foundation of everything. You can't talk about your relationship with God if you don't know what you are. Let me assure you, you won't know what God is, but at least know what you are. The Catholic tradition goes beyond learning facts to find deeper principles and meanings, including truths about the nature and the purpose of human life. On Catholic campuses, faculty, staff, and students are called to engage in philosophical, historical, and scientific and linguistic study. We are looking today at cosmocentric or cosmocentrism, fundamentally cosmology. For us in the past, and for many people yet in the present, cosmology still puts human beings and our universe, our planet, in the center of the cosmos. They haven't been reading the right books. They haven't been looking at the right pictures. The Earth is not the center of our solar system. The sun is. That changes the whole understanding. If you think the Earth is the center, you got an entirely different understanding about human importance. And forget about what kind of pictures we use to describe that. So scientific changes everything, scientific knowledge, social and linguistic study, as well as the study of the professions, to enlarge understanding, enrich our own lives, and serve humanity. I'm going to tease that last part just a little bit in a moment. I talk about, what I call this talk is commitment to universal truth. And I'm saying, I look back at my life. Most of you look forward to your life. You're the ones that's going to have to do what I'm going to be talking about this afternoon. Because you will do it if you have not already started. And that means to change your understanding of what the center of the universe is. And then, even cosmologists today tell us, it's not correct to talk about universe. It's universes, plural. Now, if you think of what cosmology says today about our universe, and millions of miles is our closest neighbor or something, and there's not just one universe, it's universes. And that changes, once we really grasp that, that changes our whole understanding of everything. That changes our understanding of what it means to be Christian. That changes our understanding of what we believe that the second person of the Blessed Trinity became a human being. Human being is only one planet in one universe. Well, what if there are many planets in many universes? How does that change? So that's the issue of talking about the difference between or moving from anthropocentric to cosmocentric. Even this statement is extraordinarily anthropocentric. And let me point out, the study of the professions to enlarge understanding, enrich our own lives as human beings. Why not enrich life? No, human life. It's always centered in humans. And if we have reached a certain plateau in maturity, we have moved away from egocentric, where I'm the center of the universe. We've moved away from that into at least we're the center of the universe. And the challenge facing us is that we must realize it's not we are the center of the universe. We don't know what the center is at this per time. We're learning. And that's why we move from anthropocentric to cosmocentric. All right. As well as the study of the professions to enlarge understanding, enrich our lives, and serve humanity. And to serve humanity is a wonderful and a noble thing, but it's biased because we are serving humanity. When we pollute water and earth, why do we do it? For money. That's serving humanity. People in Alaska are suffering terribly because things are melting. All right? And that's Alaska. Look at the weather we have had. It is the consequence in many ways. It's the consequence of what we have done to our atmosphere in our attempt to serve humanity. And we have, this is, I don't know how to say this without being political. We have a government that is resisting anything that is ecological. So you're going to have to fight the government. I never thought I would have to fight my government. But we have to fight our government. So it's even as good as these values are, they are still too anthropocentric. They're not cosmocentric enough. Now what I want to do this afternoon is, as what I've been doing, look at the particular value and then see if there's something in our biblical tradition, which is my area. See if there's something in the biblical tradition that may tell us something new, or a new insight into something old that has to do with the particular theme. So what I want to do is do something that moves us away from anthropocentrism. And that's the word I'm going to use, anthropocentrism. Humans, the center of the universe. More. And believe it or not, the biblical book that I want us to look at for a while is the book of Job. The book of Job. Now, even people who are not biblically astute have heard the story of Job. The book of Job, let me say this before I start talking about the book of Job. If we're going to really understand anything, whether that be people, or something in our history, or something in our science, if we're going to understand anything, we have to really understand the context within which it exists. All right? And we are learning that different cultural contexts make a difference. Different gender contexts make a difference. Different religious contexts make a difference. All right, so I'm going to be talking about a kind of humanitarian text. And again, I want to use the book of Job. Understand the book of Job. It's a story about, well, the structure, first of all, of the book of Job. It's got two structures. It's a narrative, so it's prose. And it's a story of a man who is a righteous man. And does the right things, and consequently, within the context of the theological theory of retribution, the good, if we live good lives, we will be rewarded. If we live sinful lives, we will be punished. That the good is rewarded and the bad is punished. Now, we learned that from experience because we all learned what actions are going to make you happy. Those are the ones you want to do. I'm using different words, but it's the same theory. You do the right thing, and its consequences will tell you whether or not you want to do it again. So the good is rewarded, the evil is punished. We normally know it, however, not from the beginning, the good is rewarded, but from the consequences. When you're happy, you think you deserve it. Chances are you do. Generally speaking, we've done the right thing and so we're happy. And when you're not happy, we normally think we don't deserve it. And if you're religious, then you think, why is God doing this to me? And if you're religious, if I do the right thing, God will bless me. I'm not saying this is wrong. I'm saying that actions have consequences. As simple as that. Actions have consequences. And if the consequences are positive, we judge the action to be good. If the consequences are negative, we judge the action to be bad. You don't need a teacher or even a parent, though they use the theory of retribution all the time. You do that, you know what's going to happen. Our parents use the theory of retribution in order to train us not to run into the street, as simple as that. Not to eat the wrong food, and you better not steal from your mother's purse and get caught. All right, so that we learn from experience, and it is called in philosophy and in religion the theory of retribution. Now the story of Job is he was a righteous man. Not only a righteous man, he was the most righteous. The book begins with that. It is quite interesting. Let me just read a little bit from the beginning. There once was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job. That man was blameless and upright. He feared God, and he turned away from evil. That's 4 different ways of saying he was a good man. I don't know if anybody here knows the Hebrew language. They do not have the same kind of structure as we have in English. Positive, comparative, superlative, if you remember that. So in order to say something is superlative, they say it 3 times. Like holy, holy, holy. That means holiest. Well, what we've got here in this book is not 3 times saying he's righteous. It's 4 times. So he's not only the most righteous man, he's the most righteous man. All right? Were born to him 7 sons, 3 daughters. Those are mysterious and, what's the word that I want? Magical words. Because these are words that represent something that is embedded in the universe. 7 is a mystical number. And I say that not because I was born on the 7th day of a month. Though I was, all right? 7 is mystical because of the week, 7 days in the week. 3 is a mystical number because you need 3 legs for the chair to stand up. And then, of course, add 7 and 3 and you get 10. And why is 10 mystical? Now, if you were in 1st grade, you would know that answer. Exactly. That's why 10 is mystical. Because when you count, you can only count up to 10. So it's considered a mystical. Now notice what he's got. He had 7 sons, 3 daughters. He had 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels. He not only had a lot, he had it in the right proportion. The right proportion here. He had 7 sons and 3 daughters, not 7 daughters and 3 sons. Why is that? Not because girls are not valued like boys are, for a different reason. 7 sons means 7 dowries coming into the family. 3 sons means 3 daughters means 3 dowries going out of the family. So he's 4 ahead. There's always reason for all of these things. All right? So, and then at 5,000 donkeys, many servants here. The greatest of all the people in the East. Why the East? Why is the East considered the place of where wisdom comes? Because that's where the sun comes from. And the sun is enlightenment. So the wise people come from the East. Well, I'm going to tell you, I know a lot of people from the East, and they are no wiser than people from the Midwest. But notice that people see these things. We inherited that without knowing what it means. Keep hitting this, I'm sorry. So he had everything in the right proportion. So you would expect that all of his blessings would be in the right proportion. And so what happens? Thus Satan, not the devil, thus Satan. The Hebrew has an article there, thus Satan. And Satan is like a prosecuting attorney. Like, I don't know if, I haven't been in Fond du Lac for a long time. I don't know if on their police cars, what they have written on the police cars, other than the word police. But in Chicago, where I lived for a long time, we serve and protect. That's what the Satan is. We serve and protect, going around the world to make sure that it's in right order. That's what the Satan is, and comes up to God and says, look at Job. Or God says to the Satan, look at my friend Job. Like a good Jewish mother, look at my boy. Look at my friend Job. He is righteous, the most righteous person in the world, God says to the Satan. And the Satan says, oh yeah, you protect him. You watch over him. Of course he's going to be righteous, but take away everything and then see what happens. So that's what happens. God allows the Satan to take away everything of Job, his reputation and his family. And the only thing that was left to him was his wife. The possibility of a future, but that's all. Everything that he had, that in his mind he earned, was taken away. And you can decide on what kind of image of God you think this story. And please realize, we know very little about God. All right? And what we know about God really comes more from us trying to understand who we are in relationship to the mystery. But there are some very definite pictures that are painted of God. But that's what they are, pictures. Whether God is really like that is another question. A little aside. St. Augustine said something, many things, but something that is most important at this point. If you are sure about anything about God, you can be sure it's not about God. If you are sure of anything about God, you can be sure it's not about God, because God is mystery. Remember that. God is mystery. God is not father. God is not mother. God is not shepherd. Those are all metaphors, wonderful metaphors. They are figures of speech that tell us some characteristic of what we believe that God is like. And any good theologian will say, that's a good metaphor, but God is more than that. Well, then how do you describe more than? We have no words for it. So we're talking about mystery when we talk about God, and not just in the Bible, anytime at all. We are talking about mystery, and we should not be surprised. I'm sorry, that's my telephone. I don't want to. God. Okay, I'm so sorry. I lost my train of thought now. Well, that was an aside anyway. Let's go back to Job. All right, so what we have is Job, but the text says he lost everything, but he did not curse God. So then the Satan comes again, and God says, you tried to have me turn against him, and look it, he was still righteous. And the Satan says to God, you took everything away from him, but you didn't touch him. Touch him, and he'll curse you to your face. And so he was stricken with a terrible disease, physical disease. We don't know what it was, and that doesn't make any difference. But he was personally stricken. And the text says, but he still did not curse God. Now, that's written in the text, in the biblical text, in prose form. And the next chapter is in poetry, and scholars believe that's a very common theme in the ancient Near Eastern world. Not simply in the Israelite or the Jewish tradition, the story of Job. But the idea of a righteous man who clings to his righteousness, even when times are bad. And then in the end, God blesses him. That's a common theme. But what the Jews did, or what the Israelites did, was take that story and open it up and insert poetry. So the story that I told you is the first 2 chapters of the book of Job. And the last 11 verses of the very last chapter, 42, says that he was reinstituted in a life of peace and happiness and prosperity. So what you have is a form, a kind of parentheses, that is simply a story, but the real story of Job is the poetry. And chapter 3, this is what we find in the book of Job in chapter 3. After this, Job opened his mouth and cursed the day of his birth. Job said, "Let the day perish in which I was born, and the night that said a man-child is conceived. Let that day be darkness. May God above not seek it, nor light shine in it. Let gloom and deep darkness claim it. Let clouds settle upon it. Let the darkness of the day terrify it." What he's asking for is that day, which means light, and in the ancient Near Eastern world, and even in our world today, light always means goodness. And darkness means evil. And what he's asking is, may the darkness or the evil in the world consume the goodness in the world. Let the darkness come and consume the light. In the ancient Near Eastern world, he is asking that the God of goodness, and that would be the God of ancient Israel, that the God of goodness be swallowed up by evil powers. You can't get too close to blasphemy like that. So in a very real sense, in the book of Job, you've got this righteous man now who is very, very different. And beginning with chapter 3 until we get to 42, it's almost, actually it's not 42, that there are other things in between, but it's not until we get to 42 that we're into the prose again. Which means we're into that story where the good is rewarded and the evil is punished. So it's a story about retribution. And the question is, why did and it's a question that everybody asks. You and I ask as well. Why is there suffering in the world? Now, sometimes we can point to why there's suffering in the world. There's greed. Look at the people in Gaza. What in God's name did they do to deserve that? And the answer is nothing. Nobody deserves what those people went through. Or the people in Sudan, which we lost contact with Sudan, and that's been going on for decades. Not much better than Gaza. Or people, being taken out of their homes at night with their children and being incarcerated. For what reason? Nobody knows. They're dangerous. They got the wrong color skin. Or they're later immigrants. When we are early immigrants, our parents. I mean, you don't have a United States without immigrants. What you have then is Native Americans, and we've tried to stamp them out. Why does that happen? So the whole question is, why is there evil in the world? And we sometimes put that on the shoulders of the devil. We make a joke of it, the devil made me do it. But, think about what that really means, that I'm an innocent, and I have some evil force that's stronger than I am, made me do evil. Really? Now, certainly there are evil forces, but take responsibility for your actions. That's the situation. That's the struggle in the book of Job. Not just that he suffers, because Job doesn't know why. Job asks the same question that we ask. Why has this happened to us? Why has this happened to me? If there is a good God, why does God allow this to happen? As if God is some kind of a puppet manipulator and makes things happen. We don't know and answer those questions, but we still ask it. And we have to come to grips with it. We have to come up with some answer, or we'll go crazy. And sometimes the answer is a very simple answer. And the answer is, I don't know, but I trust. And other times the answer is, I don't need a religion with that kind of a God, and to hell with everything else. And then they go on and live their lives. But the question is never answered. So that's the fundamental human question. That is an anthropocentric kind of question. Why has this happened to us? Why has this happened to me? Do we feel that way when anything in nature is destroyed? No, we do it with ourselves. And I'm not saying there's something wrong with that. I want to point out there's something limited about that kind of thinking. Because we suffer as part of something bigger than we are, not because somebody's being mean to us. That was okay when we were 3, 4, or 5 years old. And we are all, everybody in this room knows what I'm talking about from experience. From experience. And if you haven't suffered, where have you been living? Let me know, please. I don't have much more time before I would, come upon that great answer. And it is the ultimate question. How do we deal with what we don't know? And I want to twist that question around, that maybe the question is, not how do we deal with what we don't know? What makes us think we should know everything? Oh, I feel good that I'm not the only one with a telephone that sings. All right, so what happens? 3 visitors come to Job, and they see him suffering, and they knew him from the past when he was a righteous man. And these are people like you and me. Retribution, nobody throws that out. We operate in terms of retribution. That's, in a certain sense, if you got any problem with what is going on in our community today, chances are the reason you have a problem with it is because you do not see that retribution, we call it justice, that retribution is operative in our society. That the good should not be punished, but the evil should. People should be called accountable. That's retribution. So it's always operative. And we would not be able to live with each other. Even kids at home, if you had siblings, many times, I had one sibling, but many times we didn't fight because we didn't want to be punished. That's retribution. It's not that I won't fight, I won't disagree, I won't argue because I love you. Sometimes that works, but sometimes that doesn't. Right? So the whole question of the book of Job is a question of retribution. Call it innocent suffering, but why? Why does it happen when you're innocent? And I want to say, chances are sometimes you can answer that question. Sometimes you can point to why. We suffer from each other because we're limited human beings. Because sometimes one's greed, one's desire for things just overpowers. You don't need any angel or devil on your shoulder whispering in your ear, take it, take it, take it. At least I don't need that. All I know what it is that tempts me. And I'm sure you know what makes you live a life that is not worthy of you. You're better than that. And yet we do things that we know we're better than this, but it's because we want something else. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about genuine goodness, living genuine lives, but it doesn't seem to pan out right. And why not? Why not? At the heart of our religious tradition, we believe, of all things about God, that God loves us. Well, that's a hell of a way to show it, some people would say. Because when people love each other, they want to care for each other, they want to help each other. And yet parents frequently say, and we make jokes of it, except the kids don't, this is going to hurt you more than it hurts me. And it does. But we have to be strong. We have to be strong with people that we love and who cannot be strong for themselves. Then we must be strong. We cannot allow them to do it. Or we must, if it's something they should do and they don't want to, we must be there to support them, but make sure that they do what they know they should do for their own good. That's all part of life. Once again, that's what we find in the book of Job. So the three guys come to visit him, operating out of the same theory of retribution. And what do they say? Let me read a little bit. The structure of the book is that one, there are three of them, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar. Eliphaz, he gives a little speech and Job responds. Then the second one gives a speech and Job responds. And the third gives a speech and Job responds. And then we start again with a second cycle of that, and then the third cycle. So most of the book of Job is that kind of interaction. And Job first says, and he condemns he's complaining now. The Job of and this is all in poetry, the Job of the prose story is a Job who's righteous and riding, sky high. Everything is working well. The Job in chapter 3, same man, did nothing bad, and he is cursing the night that he was born, the night that he was conceived. So the first man, Eliphaz, speaks. If one ventures a word with you, will you be offended? Who can keep from speaking? You have instructed many. You have strengthened the weak hands. You were a good guy. We all know that. Your words have supported those who were stumbling. You have made firm the feeble knees. But now it has come to you, and you are impatient. It touches you, and you are dismayed. Is not your fear of God your confidence, and the integrity of your ways your hope? So what is he saying? In the past, you supported everybody, and now hardship has come to you, and now you're just as bad as everybody else. And what are they talking about? They're talking about not that the good shall be rewarded, but if you're suffering, you must have done something. And all the way through, you must have done something. It comes right out of the same question that we frequently ask, what did I do to deserve this? Same notion of retribution. So they say, confess your sin. And they say it in beautiful language. And trying to encourage a righteous man to confess sin he did not commit. And then God will take away the hardship, and then we'll all live happily ever after. So one visitor, some people call them the friends of Job. I think, who needs friends like that? So first of all, Zophar, and then Job responds. And then the next one says the same thing, and Job responds. Just in different words, and Job's response. And Job's response, lovely. And he says, yeah, you can talk. You don't know what I'm going through. And they're not supportive of him. And he finds fault with their not being supported. All the way through, this righteous Job is complaining about everything. But remember his context. He's suffering in a way. He's lost everything. And he doesn't know why. He doesn't know why. No place in the book of Job does he ask God to take it away. No place. If anything, why has this happened? And he repeats what has happened to him and how he responds. And why doesn't God change it? So keep that in mind. The major question is why? And if that question why is not answered, then you've got somebody who lives with great insecurity. Talk about human limitation. Human limitation does not always mean sinfulness. Human limitation means when I'm hurt, I'm hurt. I'm hurt, both physically and emotionally. We all hate being left out. I mean, anyone who says, I don't care, I don't believe that. We all need each other. We need to be accepted. We need to be understood. We are so dependent on each other. In a very real sense, my happiness is, it depends upon the happiness or the goodness of the people in my life. And just the same thing, I have a responsibility to take responsibility for their happiness as well. But what happens when it doesn't work right? What do we do then? Sometimes, we mope. That's what Job is doing. Sometimes we accuse. That's what Job is doing. But that doesn't always that doesn't usually. And it depends upon what state of mind I'm in. I could say that doesn't ever give an answer to why it happened in the first place. So we have this, what they call the dialogue of the visitor. And they all are operating out of the theory of retribution. Good shall be rewarded, evil shall be punished. But I want to add, sometimes. Sometimes. And the question is, and what or how do you respond when it doesn't operate that way? Because chances are, in some of the most significant experiences of life, you're not going to find an answer. You'll find an answer that you can live with. And you have to find an answer that you can live with. And maybe you can live without an answer. There are answers. In my own life, and I'm telling you nothing, that everybody does not have the same experience. There have been some hard times in life, right? And in those hard times in life, we ask why. We ask, what can I do to get rid of this or to get out of this? And there are opportunities. There have been times when I have been able to say, I trust in God. And there have been times when I discover I cannot honestly say that I have that same trust in God. And then I'm in a bad way if I cannot trust in God. Maybe then all I can do is hang on until it goes away. And I'm not telling you anything that's so personal that you don't have the same kind of experiences. So that's what we got in Job. That's what we got in Job. And toward the end, after we've got 3 cycles of these conversations, then Job turns to the heavens and calls on God and says, come down and explain yourself. Now, in the ancient Near Eastern world, if there was any human being, if there was a story, I'm going to talk next time about biblical theology. But when I use the word story, that does not mean that it's not true. It probably means it's not historically accurate. And by that I mean we all live life and experience with experiences that we talk about and it's not historically accurate. For example, a child is born in the family. This child is the most beautiful child that was ever born. Oh, really? And the answer is yes. In the eyes of the family, there's not another child that beautiful. I've yet to meet a man who did not marry the sweetest woman in the world. Really? And the answer is yes. And are they lying? Of course not. And you go home for Thanksgiving dinner and you sit around the Thanksgiving table and you talk about the old days when you were kids and your siblings did not live in the same house as you lived in, because that did not happen when we were there and that year, because we saw it all from a different point of view. I had one sibling. I was the younger of the two. My whole life was second-hand clothes, and there was nothing wrong. I had what I needed. So I had no problem, being the second one. But she did. She had real problem because she was the first grandchild on both sides. And that was a real problem for her in the beginning. And when I would get a birthday present, my parents always had to buy her a little something so that she got something. That lasted for a little while. And I was always thrilled just to open up a package or watching somebody else open up a package. Now, two very different experiences, and we're both right there at the same time. All right? So when we talk about stories, we talk about from our point of view or from some particular point of view. And the story of Job is the story. Did it really happen? Yeah, it did. But maybe the person's name was not Job. Maybe it was Diane. Or maybe the person's name was Jim. Or maybe the person's name was Carol. And that story means something because that's exactly how I felt at that time when such and such happened. It's a true story. It's just not historical. Or it's universally historical, with details have changed a bit. So what we have now in the story, Job makes a demand. Come down and explain yourself. Sometimes we have the chutzpah, to use a good Jewish word, the chutzpah to make that demand on God. Come down and explain this. Or we're pious, please explain this. But we're doing the same thing. We're expecting that God is to explain and give an answer to the question that cannot usually be answered. And in the ancient Near Eastern world, in a good ancient Near Eastern story, any human being that made such a demand would be struck dead. But not in Israel's story. God is not mad at Job. But listen to what God says. Job's question is, remember that question, why has this happened to me? I have always been faithful to you. I have done everything for your people. Why have you treated me this way? And this is what Job says when the Lord answers. Chapter 38, the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind. Who is this that darkens counsel by words without knowledge? Gird up your loins like a man. In Hebrew, there are 4 words that we translate man. This word is gibber, and it means strong man, and sometimes, and in some translations, it's translated warrior. So that's what we're talking about. Gird up your loins like a gibber. I will question you, and you will answer me. And here's what God asks. Where were you when I created the heavens? How would you answer that question? And think about what the answer is supposed to be, why have you done this? And God says, where were you when I created the heavens? And that's all. God never speaks about Job's suffering. He calls Job's attention to the marvels of creation. We have moved away from anthropology. The book of Job is all about anthropology. With the Yahweh speeches, we have moved away from anthropology and we have come into cosmology. And God speaks cosmology. Where were you when I was stricken with cancer? And God would say in response, and where were you when I created the heavens? What have you done to make the heavens more beautiful? Anything? And there are Question upon question upon question. Have you commanded the morning since the days began? Do you make the sun rise? That's what he's asking. So that it might take hold of the skirts of the earth and the wicked be shaken out of it. It's changed like clay. Have you entered into the springs of the sea or walked in the recesses of the deep? Have the gates of hell been revealed to you? There's another question that I would add that's not in the text. Who do you think you are? That's the question. Who do we think we are? That we are the center of the universe. And again, I've said this before, I say it again. The world in which we live is four-dimensional. Length, width, depth, and time. Cosmologists tell us the world of which we are a part is at least 10 dimensions. So if you and I are in this room and we can measure length, width, depth, and time, but that's only 4, what's going on in the other 6 dimensions in this room? It's way beyond our experience. We can't even imagine what that is like. Who do we think we are? That the universe should conform to our desires. And again, I want to say, and using the mystery of the universe as God does in the book of Job, by asking questions. And he never really puts Job down. I mean, he says, where were you? Where were you when I made the sun shine? And Job knows he can't answer those questions. There's a whole couple of chapters of questions that God asks Job. And at the end of that, this is what Job says. Job answers the Lord, "See, I am of small account. Good for him. What shall I answer you? I lay my hand over my mouth." That means I should have kept my mouth shut. I lay my hand over my mouth. I've spoken once, I will not answer. I've spoken twice, to proceed no longer. I'm sorry. Now, think of the dynamic of that. Job is doing all the complaining because he operates as you and I do, out of an anthropocentric kind of understanding of human beings, that we are important human beings. But the only way we can appreciate what importance is to understand who we really are. Who we really are. And new scientific insight does not mean that we are acting like God, any more than any human action is like acting like God. It simply means we've learned a little bit more about who we are as human beings within the cosmos. Science will tell us all the time now, it's always within the cosmos. When we talk about storms, it is within the cosmos. When we talk about harvest, it's within the cosmos. How the earth we're beginning to move from only anthropology, only human-centeredness. We're moving to cosmology. And that shows us what our relationship is with other dimensions of creation. It's what I talked about last month. The whole idea of being, we're made of the dust of the earth in that story. Beautiful metaphorical story of creation in Genesis 2. We are made of Adam comes from Adamah. We are made of the ground of the earth. But so are the trees and so are the animals. And that means that we are siblings to the trees and to the animals and to the rest of life. We come from earth. We are earthlings. I said this last line too. When we die, we don't go home to God. We are home to God. One of my favorite expressions, the resurrection of Jesus does not mean that when we die, we go home to God. It means that Jesus is risen from the dead and comes home with us. That if we are Christians, this is it. This is our home. I'm not saying there's nothing after this death, but I'm saying if we don't see this as our home and the rest of the cosmos as our sibling in a very real sense, or of our origin, we miss the boat. And to give more importance to cosmology does not in any way minimize what a human being is, but puts a human being in the right kind of context. Enhances. And why is it that traditional people, somehow or other, either they have that insight or they haven't lost it yet? They haven't lost it yet. Where they realize that they are siblings to the animals in their world. And they talk about, the life of the wind, or talking to the wind. These are not crazy people. These are people who have an entirely different understanding of who they are in the cosmos. Many of us have lost that. When we have misunderstood how science separates us from religion, then it's not good science. And it's not good religion, because science does not answer all questions. Science yet has not answered that question. Why do we suffer? Why do good people suffer? Bad people, we understand they've done something wrong. Oh yeah? That's an easy answer. It's an easy answer. And it sometimes works, to strengthen us, but that's still an easy answer. Got to watch my time here. All right, so that's how Job responds to God. There was a second list of questions that God asks, and it's all about animals. So the first is all about, the universe and the natural world. But then the second questions are questions like, have you ever been around when a doe drops her fawn? And can you make it a gentle dropping for her? Those kinds of questions. And Job answers once again. Job answered the Lord, I know that you can do all things, and there's no purpose of yours can be thwarted. I have uttered what I did not understand, things too wonderful for me that which I did not know. I heard of you by the hearing of the ear. That's how most of us know about God. Somebody told us. Therefore, I heard of you from the hearing, but now my eye sees you. Now I have had an experience of you. And there are many mystics of many religious traditions who have an experience of God in an experience of the cosmos. Therefore, I despise myself and repent in dust and ashes. Dust and ashes, of course, is a metaphor that speaks about the ultimate limitation of human beings, and that's death. That's the ultimate limitation. So the poetry of Job ends, and Job never knows why. His answer was, his question, was never answered. But what happened was, God opened up the cosmos, and Job realized, and he said, who am I? I have spoken about things I don't understand. Why have you been brought forth? Why have I been brought forth? Why have we had a chance of this magnificent drama called life? Why? And why the way we are? Those are fundamental human questions. Those are not just questions for little children. They ask the questions as well, and we tell them about the stork. Well, but because we say they're too young, to understand. But nowadays, children know, the baby's in mommy's belly. And they put their ears to see if they can hear the baby, the heart beating. But still, we don't understand certain things. We still don't understand why. The question is, and it's a religious question. All right? So we answer a question with a question, which any good teacher will say you don't do that. But we will. The question is, why do innocent people suffer? The answer is, can you trust a God who is in charge? That's how God is described. Who is in charge of everything and doesn't let you in on the answer. So the book of Job is not primarily a story of a righteous man who suffers. It's a story of a man who is challenged to trust without understanding. And the reason he doesn't understand is because God could have said, if I told you, you wouldn't understand anyway. And that's the answer for many of the fundamental human questions. You wouldn't understand if I explained it to you. So that's the move from anthropology, or from anthropocentric thinking, to cosmocentric. It makes the context bigger and brighter and flashier and much more comforting in a certain sense. We can't get lost in it because we are part of it. The universe is not just out there, it's in here. You and I are the universe. We are of it, made of it, parts of it, in the same way as my fingernail is a part of my body. It's not that my fingernail has a relationship with my body. That's strange thinking. My fingernail is my body, not my whole body, but a part of my body. And if you've ever had infection in a fingernail, your whole body knows it. Well, that's the way we are in the cosmos. It's not that we have a relationship. We are it in a certain way. Not the whole thing. That's the problem. That's the problem. Not the whole thing, but a magnificent part of it. I don't know who, I used to think it was Huxley that said, we are the natural world reflecting on itself. But somebody said that's not the author of that. But I want to say that again. You and I are the natural world reflecting on itself. Regardless of how warm the puppy's eyes are, that dog does not understand what you're talking about. All right? That dog looks at us with great understanding. There's no self-reflection there. You know, Lassie may know how to come home, but Lassie doesn't know how to build the home. All right? So they have certain powers, but we reflect on the universe. We are the universe reflecting on itself. Thank you.
Oh,
Now,
okay.
I went over, but there's, I suppose, I mean.
I didn't see anybody leave, so I think we're okay.
You want questions? Okay.
Yes. So any questions? Oh, come on. Okay, over there.
I'm Sister Christy Ann Laudoff, part of the community. I don't have a question, but I do want to say when one of the juniors brought in the video about the 10 dimensions of the universe, we watched it and they looked at me and my head hurts. And it's a mind-blowing thing that I think everybody should see just because it's mind-blowing. And it puts that cosmological viewpoint in perspective for us.
Is it a YouTube? How do you get it?
I think we got it on well, yeah, I think it was a YouTube at that point. That's about 12 years ago, 15 years ago.
Okay, thank you very much, Christiane. And we don't have the right words to use to describe it because the only words we know are words that fit our universe. So we have to sort of make up words.
All right, we got Lee over here.
I was trying really hard not to have a question, but I do. So, metacognition is our ability to think about our thinking.
Try that again.
Metacognition
Okay.
is our ability to think about our thinking. I heard you ponder that we are the natural world reflecting on itself. So self-reflection, is that like a meta introspection? And what implications would that have for us?
I would think it would, now, that's, what's this, I think it's Julian Huxley. It's one of the Huxleys, of the philosophers, who I always thought he said it. But it's a very common expression. Now, having said that, and admitting that's not my field, but I would agree with the way you describe it. I think that's a meta-reflection, yeah. Exactly, exactly. And I've never heard anyone disparage it. You know, in academic circles, if there's a chance to disparage something, we will do it.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
While we're waiting, I just have a real quick question. So at the beginning, talking about going from the human-centered anthropologetic to cosmic, or cosmology.
Cosmocentric,
Cosmocentric.
Yes.
So what was really interesting is that changes the dynamic of are we alone, and what does that really mean?
That's right.
Like, are we alone? And then when we even think about the universe within us, there's so many things we haven't discovered on our own planet.
That's right.
So,
Or in our own solar system.
so to have faith in religion doesn't mean that you still don't have wonder about that. We might not be the only thing here, but if you, because I grew up many times thinking that the chosen people of God were here, told all the time how important humans are. It's silly to think there's anything else, but this kind of flips that on its ear, and that then helps. That makes it seem like
But
very.
everybody, Erin, everybody was raised that way. I mean, our whole educational system, even in its best context, really ultimately is how can we, take advantage? How can we flourish? And that's why I keep wanting to say, I'm not saying it's bad, but to flourish, to be educated, it still is very anthropocentric. And it's not blotted out if you get cosmocentric. You just have a larger context within which to do and more opportunities to do it. So yeah, it's not just you that was raised that way. We all were, and we still are. I mean, it's where people are not acknowledging that, science is blasting things open.
So
I mean, where did she go? All right, you said about 12 years. Christiane said about 12 years ago they were watching this. I'm not sure I knew about the 10 dimensions. I may have known about the 10 dimensions. I'm fascinated with this, but that's very novel thinking. And these things, little by little by little, and all of a sudden, then when things collapse, then something else comes up.
So as I'm going up by Sister Donna, so this whole concept of like AI or in vitro fertilization, when somebody says we're playing God, that's so simplistic that changes because I've heard that when science, we have to be best to serve the world, and we're caretakers of it, we're part of it. But that whole concept when science and we see these next steps, hear that word, we're playing God, that after today's conversation makes me think quite differently about what that statement means.
I'd be willing to bet that every time there was a major scientific step or plunge, movement, there were those people who would say, you're playing God, because of the way it's used. Because in a certain sense, if we can manipulate fertilization, and we already can, but if we can manipulate fertilization, which movie star are we all going to look like? You know, and who determines that? The one in power, the one with money, they determine that. Now, to me, that's a manipulation, you know, but we've learned something. And that something, the way we use it, can enhance and it can undermine.
I don't want to enhance or undermine anything. I'm just wanting to say that if some of you are like me and you'd want to see or listen to Dianne again, it's on the CSA channel for YouTube. And all you have to do is do CSA space and channel. And it comes up as one of the, there's lots of other channels that will say, but you'll see her picture and along with other talks she's done. So all of the sessions she gave earlier and today is there. So you can share that with anybody and continue the wisdom that we really appreciate Dianne's, who she is and how she shared her wisdom and life experience with us. So thank you, Dianne. And we wanted to spread out. I think to me, it's part of what the Spirit has done when I think of the mission committee talking about how we're going to deal with this concept, Catholic intellectual tradition, and then we went, well, Sister Dianne maybe could talk, and what's come out of this. The CSA channel helps spread the word, and I think that's part of what we're being called for in our world today, too. Thank you.
Time for one more, if anybody has another one. All right, Luke.
Hi, Sister, thanks. As I understand kind of the trajectory that you're so maybe familial, tribal centrism, nationalism, to anthropocentrism, then to cosmocentrism, right? So my question is, why stop there? Why stop there? Why move from anthropology to cosmology? Why not move on to being theocentric or Christocentric? And understanding, like, the proper context of understanding the human person is in relationship to God and Christ rather than just the natural created order.
But people are doing that. What I try to do, I trace there, is really the scientific, as it said in that value. Students are called to engage in philosophical, historical, scientific, and I tried, maybe I didn't make that clear. The contexts that I focused on today were were really scientific contexts. I mean, you know, to bring God into it, of course, you know, that's an entirely different kind of a focus. But of course, I would say this. I really think, I'll be gone by then, but I really think that new cosmological insights from science are going to force to look at all of theology in a new way. Because the idea that Jesus is one of us, our tradition tells us, you know, that Jesus is one of us. I think it was this week, one of the readings in the liturgy, Colossians, where read Colossians, Paul's letter to the Colossians, it is there that Paul speaks precisely about what you're talking about. He is the firstborn of all creation. It doesn't say that he's the firstborn of human beings. He's the firstborn of all creation. And it goes on, and this is Paul. This is hundreds of years ago, where that whole notion, they were aware, that whole notion that Christ, if all things are made through him and made by him and so on and so forth, that notion of a broad context will have to be a Christological. Now that's a Christian concept. Chances are Buddhism and Taoism would have a slightly different focus. I don't know, again, that's not my field, and I don't know exactly how they would say that. But the whole idea that God is bigger than, that's universal in the major religions. So what you're raising, that question, that is already in our religious tradition in the gospel, in the letter of Paul to the Colossians.
Yeah, even in Job, I see the same kind of logic. So we start with creation, and you mentioned animals, but the telos of that is,
That's right.
is God. Who are you in relationship to God?
Exactly.
You're nothing.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And in no way in the book of Job does that destroy Job. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, in comparison, you know, and that's why he says, I mean, where were you when I did what I do? What can you, how, you know, and it's a question of, you know, you got to trust, I know what I'm doing, you know. You can't do it. You don't have to do it. You're not meant to do it. I do it. And I know what I'm doing. Now, can you trust me even if I don't answer your questions the way you ask them? So you're right. It is a religious context. But I was looking at it primarily from a religious context.
Okay, thank you.
All right, one more time, big round of applause for Sister Dianne. So thank you very much. This is still the beginning. We haven't gotten halfway through, which is wonderful. And you're in very good health and spirits today, so I can't even imagine what it's going to be like in November. So I'm going to turn it over to Dianne really quickly, and she's going to fill you upcoming dates where we're going to celebrate us being Catholic and being part of this great tradition of CSA and part of the Marian University community.
Real quick, the next speaker in the series, the next talk, is November 18th. So we'll regather in the room on November 18th for the next lecture by Sister Dianne. Also, next Tuesday, if you're interested, you're all invited to the Saber Cafe, the coffee house on campus, 3 to 4 p.m. Dr. George Kuntz will be sharing about his own faith story. He was one of the Packer players during the Brett Favre era, and a wonderful human being, a wonderful Christian man that would be happy to share his story. So if you can come and support that Agape Latte, that is next Tuesday, 3 to 4 in the Saber Cafe. Thank you so much, Sister.